Aboriginal Australians knew about the Western Gray Kangaroo, from the Latin Macropus fuliginosus, long ago, because it is a fairly common marsupial species. But European scientists have spent about 200 years to properly classify this animal. It all started with the British, in particular with the British researcher M. Flinders. In 1802, they managed to get to Kangaroo Island for the first time, catch and cook some animals for dinner, which they mistook for ordinary huge kangaroos. A year later, the confusion was supported by the French, who thought that the zoo in Paris necessarily needs new exotic animals, which they discovered in a distant land. Several specimens of this funny species were caught and sent to France. In 1817, after many studies, it was decided to give these animals a Latin name as a new species, and since then they have been identified as a separate species. Western Gray Kangaroo, Macropus fuliginosus. As usual, the Latin name has not caught on, but kangaroos have earned such nicknames as red-eared, bush kangaroo, and even smoky, and sometimes even stinky. All because of a pungent odor reminiscent of curry, a spice from India. This smell is peculiar to males as adults. Because of the pungent smell emanating from the males, locals have given kangaroos offensive nicknames. But the mishaps didn't end there. Scientists for some reason recorded the Western Gray Kangaroos as inhabitants of distant Tasmania back in the same 1817. It took a century to learn in 1917 that this was also a mistake, and on the island of Tasmania grazed their relatives, the Eastern Gray Kangaroos. Finally, in 1971, they were assigned to the same species as South Australia, but it took several more years until all the information was combined in the 1990s. It was then that the idea of Western Gray Kangaroos as we know them now emerged. But there are still quite a few inconsistencies in the description of these animals. Western Gray Kangaroos are quite large, with a body length of 84 to 110 centimeters and a weight of 28 to 54 kilograms. The main advantage of each kangaroo is a very long tail. It ranges from 80 to 100 centimeters. This variation occurred because the males are almost twice as large as females. The habitat of the species is Kangaroo Island, which belongs to Australia. Kangaroos can reach the 1.3-meter mark if they stand upright and on two paws. Their fur is stiff and their coloring is both grayish and brown, though their throat, chest and abdomen are always lighter than other parts of the body. The baby learns the world in its mother's pouch. The habitat of tailed animals is Kangaroo Island, as well as almost the entire southern half of the Australian continent. But different subspecies graze on the island and on the mainland. Kangaroos are quite fond of human settlements, because there are a lot of nooks and vegetation, which serves them as food. So catching a kangaroo inside an agricultural plantation, some park, or even on a golf course is not a rare sight. Western Gray Kangaroos belong to the giant kangaroos, because they are really big. Mostly these guests still walk at night, often with 15 individuals per herd. They eat leaves of low-growing trees and bushes, as well as grass. During the breeding season, males like to fight with each other for the right to be the strongest. As a consequence, the weakest leave the mob. But the bachelor groups formed by them after that soon disintegrate as well. Female Western Gray Kangaroos are quite unusual. They are the only ones in their family without embryonic diapause. After fertilization, the embryo develops in the uterus immediately. Therefore, until the cub stops feeding on its mother's milk, the female does not allow the male to approach herself or the cub.